welcome to York Theatre Royal and to the other part of our Vespertine event. And thank you for being so patient and waiting for so long. Just to say, I'm Juliet Forster, I'm the Associate Director here at the Theatre Royal, and my guests this evening are John Foxx and Benge, who many of you know already. Just to kind of say what we've been doing, because I think not everybody here went to the event, but Vespertine it's a series of monthly kind of arts events and happenings and kind of curious sort of goings on around the venues in York. So there's many venues and heritage sites and arts organisations that sort of join up to do free events across the city. And this is one of them. And the publicity talks about it as being some of the kind of intriguing places in York and sort of seeing it through new eyes. And I think they don't become much more intriguing than our Cold War bunker out towards Acomb, which is where we've been this evening for the first part of the Vespertine event, where John Foxx and Benge played a live set down in the bunker with lots of interesting visuals, inspired by E.M. Forster's short story, The Machine Stops. Can you just give a wave if you did see it tonight, just so I can get the balance? Great. Okay, so good. So the majority, but only just the majority. Well, for those of you that didn't see it, and you will wish that you had now, we're just going to give you a little taster because Ed, our cameraman, was filming the event and very quickly has edited together the highlights of it, so you can get a taster for what we've been doing this evening. Okay, so without further ado, I will just kick this off and leave that away. Great, thank you. So just to put this in context, because some of you, especially those that didn't go to the gig, might be sitting here wondering what the Theatre Royal is doing, running around putting gigs on in bunkers and working with some of the leading lights of Britain's electronic scene. What it's all about is Ian Forster's short story, The Machine Stops, which many of you will have seen the artwork and the posters out about, that we are doing as the first ever stage adaptation here, and it opens on Friday this week. The soundtrack for the piece has been composed by Foxx and Benge, which is a huge part of the process of putting the piece on stage has been the music. So that opens on Friday, so if you want to hear more of that amazing music, please come along and see the show if you're not already kind of booked in for it. So that's how we came to be doing it, and it's a co-production between Pilot Theatre and York Theatre Royal. So tonight we were working with the Cold War Bunker, but we will then also, Pilot and ourselves will be taking this piece out on the road for a very short tour after it finishes here. So that's kind of how it all came to be, and just those of you that don't know very much about the story, it is about, Ian Forster wrote it in 1909, and it basically predicts a world whereby everybody has moved underground, so all living beneath the Earth's surface in individual rooms and communicating with each other through these sort of blue screens. So over 100 years ago, he managed to kind of predict the internet and a network society and all sorts of kind of instant messaging, Skype, all sorts of extraordinary things, and not just, I think, the technology, but also how human beings react to it. So it's a kind of really interesting, pertinent piece for our times. And from quite early on, I've been trying to do this piece for quite a long while actually, but from the very early stages, I felt very much that John's music was absolutely the right music to bring this to life. And that in that it kind of creates worlds in your heads, it absolutely has some of the essence of the machine kind of within it. As somebody who was and still is a great fan of John's music, it was very much the sort of the soundtrack of my early teenage years. And I think the kind of things that you really like at that age sort of stay with you, really. They don't ever get kind of get lost. I was absolutely delighted when he said yes to writing the score for this, and even more delighted when he brought Benge on board, because Benge, as I answer, has got the biggest collection in the world, I don't know, but not quite the world, but of analogue synths. So actually we were able to make a completely analogue soundtrack. And again, those of you that were in the bunker tonight who felt the vibrations through their bodies, you know, it's a big difference to digital music, and to actually have that as the base of what we're doing, again, feels really kind of apt and really exciting as part of the work that we're doing. So that gives you some context, and the purpose of this evening, as the other part of our event, is to give you a chance to ask questions. So the secret of a really good question and answer session is where people have questions. I'll just sort of, you know, throw that out to you now, so you can have a little think about what you might like to ask, and it's a great opportunity to ask any of those. I'm sure I know for a fact there are some real kind of fans of your music in the audience. So people who've got things they'd really like to ask, or anything about the creative process that you'd like to know about, please do pitch in. You've got handheld mics if you're not kind of heard. I'll just kick off with one question for you, because I'm kind of interested really in this. What was it like to play in a bunker? And is that the weirdest venue you've played in? If not, what was the weirdest venue?
I don't think it is the weirdest. Well, it's pretty close.
Pretty close. What was a near?
Well, playing in the woods in a festival was weird, because there isn't any power in the woods.
Electronic festival.
Quite some time, music festival. Took quite some time to get the power leads over. But that, yeah, it was pretty close.
Pretty close.
It's good. Like, the one we really planned to do was the cooling tower at some point, because I think the sound would be wonderful. in a cooling tower. Nice and echoey.
That would be like, we did wonder at one point when we were looking at this gig whether you did some of it in the bunker, and then we took you to, there's a kind of a high-rise sort of block of flats that is kind of empty at the moment that has been used for other Vespertine events.
Yeah,
and we thought we'd go from underground to high-rise. Yeah, exactly. But it could be an interesting. Then we thought the idea of trying to move all the stuff from one place to another place and do that in the end, it was not the right move. But yeah. What about you, Benge? Any particular?
I did play in a sort of disused tin mine or something in Sweden, which was quite amazing. That had like a 20-second reverb on the sound, so
amazing.
You had to design the set for the space, very much so.
Yeah.
But that was the interesting thing there tonight, was that we didn't really know what to expect for the sound, so we were really pleased it kind of sounded nice in there.
It did.
Yeah, it's a good sounding room, and that was a surprise.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect a nuclear bunker to sound good. Pleasant way to pass off the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah, I suppose that's one kind of looking on the bright side of it, yeah. So has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask? Yes, hello sir.
Am I going to go mic?
I think we can hear you probably, but yes, if there's a mic coming. So
I'll wait for the mic. Hi. As someone who has an office underground and my access to the internet continually packs up, I can truly relate to machine stops. And I am an old fan of the early Ultravox as well, I have to say, John. And some of your early work as a solo performer. Sorry I missed the show earlier on. My question is really about the book. Presumably you both read the book before. How did you feel about getting involved in performing with that book by Ian Forster?
Well, it's a real privilege, I think.
It's just, the interesting thing for me was that, how it managed to predict this sort of scenario that we find ourselves in now. And I hadn't heard about it until, I was introduced to it here. So, I think that sort of thing's really interesting where you get, something to be so well predicted in advance like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I read it at school in the 1960s, and I was really intrigued by it. And I thought it was a good, interesting story. But that was before the internet, and then the internet came along, and the story got even more predictive, if you like. And I just don't know how he could have possibly foreseen, not just technology changing like that. In 19...
In fact, he probably wrote it in 1908, I think. It was published in 1908.
Yeah, it's phenomenal because, electricity wasn't commonly used everywhere then, and it was very primitive in terms of electronic. I mean, there weren't any electronics, really.
Television wasn't even around. It was the early stages. They were just beginning to understand what the technology might allow them to do. But
there was some film technology.
A little bit of film.
It wasn't that widely available. So how he could foresee that is, I just don't know. But also what interests me is not just foreseeing the technology, but the effect of it. How the internet, I think the internet has smuggled in isolation under the guise of communication and connection. You actually get more isolated by using social media and using the computer than you would if you went out and talked to people in the street, And it's ironic that you get less connection under the guise, under the pretense of being connected, and you're not actually connected. So
it is interesting, isn't it, how you can... I'm back. It is interesting how you can have that connection with people on the other side of the